and opposition leaders.
With a heavy military guard outside the army facility, Thailand's former Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra and 22 associates met with the country's army chief, General Prayut Chan-o-cha. Prayut launched his coup after the rival factions refused to give ground in a struggle for power between the royalist establishment and a populist government. 28 people have been killed since the protests began last November. Prayut also met with military personnel to explain the role of the army following the bloodless coup. He censored the media, dispersed rival protesters in Bangkok, and imposed a nationwide 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. An army spokesman announced on television this morning the constitution had been cancelled and the caretaker government dissolved, except for the Senate. He said General Prayut has assumed duties of prime minister. The coup immediately drew international condemnation. The U.S. State Department said there was no justification for the military takeover, and it was reviewing its $10 million in annual aid to Thailand.
We've taken preliminary steps to suspend military engagement and assistance while we consider the facts on the ground. Right now, there's a comprehensive review of that going on.
Meanwhile, the streets of Bangkok have been quiet with very little military presence. This tourist said he did not feel ill at ease in the least.
Not at all. For the last 4 days, we have been having a very nice time as travelers, and we never faced any problem anywhere.
Meanwhile, leaders of the pro- and anti-government protest groups are still believed to be in detention. The military has banned 155 people, including politicians and activists, from leaving the country. Alan Bucknia, TVB News.
Here in Hong Kong, the Travel Industry Council has cancelled all package tours to Thailand scheduled between tomorrow and next Friday. About 1,300 people are affected. Jenny Lam has that story.
Flights to and from Thailand have so far not been disrupted, but 6 out of 8 Hong Kong tour groups heading for Thailand today were cancelled. Some of those who are travelling on their own have been trying to change their flights. Just in case, says this woman. This man decided to set off anyway after checking that the area where he will be staying is still safe. The Travel Industry Council met with its member agencies today and announced the cancellation of all package tours to Thailand from tomorrow to next Friday. About 1,300 people who signed up for 70 different tours are affected. The Council's Executive Director, Joseph Tung, said travellers can choose to postpone their trip for 6 months, in which case the agencies will keep their payment for the time being. They can also seek a refund. In that case, the agencies can charge a handling fee of $150 for tours that are 5 days or less, or $300 for tours that are 6 days or longer. The Council will continue to liaise with the Security Bureau and decide later if it will resume the tours from the 31st of May onwards. About 50 Hong Kong tour groups totaling 1,200 holidaymakers are in Thailand right now. All of them are safe. Plus another 1,200 people are travelling around the country on their own. Yesterday, the government raised the travel alert for Thailand to red. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
And to other news now, the requirements for a proposed subsidy scheme for low-income families will be relaxed. Applicants will have to work 192 hours a month instead of 208 hours as proposed earlier. Evelina Lowe reports.
The chief executive announced the setting up of the Low-Income Working Family Allowance Scheme in his latest policy address. That's aimed at encouraging the poor to work and not rely on social benefits, as well as giving their children a better life. Those who are eligible must make less than half the city's median wage. If they work 144 hours or more per month, they can receive a $600 subsidy each month. And those who work up to 208 hours a month will be entitled to $1,000. 208 hours would mean 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. During a public consultation on this proposal, many believe the hours are too long. So the government has decided to reduce the number of working hours to 192 per month. That means 8 hours a day, 5.5 days a week. Under the original plan, 200,000 low-income families are set to benefit, and that number will go up thanks to today's proposal. The scheme had an annual price tag of $3 billion. Now relaxing the requirements will cost taxpayers an additional $200 million a year. Secretary for Labor and Welfare Matthew Cheung said the move was made after considering the public's opinion and that the number of working hours could vary. For example, shorter months like February. However, Cheung insisted 192 hours will be the government's bottom line. One lawmaker we talked to today said more can be done.
The subsidies also give to the family who have elderly and disabled persons.
The government will begin accepting applications for the scheme from October 1st next year. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
The Standard Working Hours Committee plans to gather information from 10,000 households over the next 2 months. The committee wants to come up with a more concrete direction of how to deal with the issue of long working hours. There are many different views on standard working hours in Hong Kong, what it should be, or even whether it should be regulated. The Standard Working Hours Committee was set up just over a year ago to look into this. And after its 7th meeting today, members pointed out that it's a very complicated process, rejecting recent criticism by lawmakers that they're being slow in their work.
We have already in the consulting group have arranged already some 20 consulting, and we're going to do another 13. We will be going down to the fields to meet the people and so on and so forth. So I think to say that we have been slack is unfair.
There's no conclusion yet because the committee is still in a consultation stage. And as part of that, members are hoping to get the views of grassroots workers at workplaces such as wet markets and construction sites. And its next big step is to conduct a large-scale household survey with an aim to gather information from 10,000 households.
Well, obviously, to get details, to get a successful 10,000, we might need 12,000 or 13,000 to get that. And again, we need the support of the public to do all this. So we hope by that time we'll be able to produce at least some form of what we consider as a reasonable suggestion for the public and for government to take into consideration.
The survey will look at the types of jobs taken up in the households, working hours and wages, as well as whether respondents think they're able to strike a healthy work-life balance. It'll take place between June and August. A consultancy firm will pick households from both public housing units and private homes around town.
Several civil service unions have endorsed the latest pay trend survey results. That's despite complaints by low-ranking staff that the proposed increase for them is too small. Stephanie Choi with more.
The Pay Trend Survey Committee met today, 1 week after the latest survey results were released. The Model Scale 1 Staff Consultative Council, which represents lower-ranking government workers, was disappointed. Spokeswoman Lee Wah-Yi says their salaries cannot catch up with inflation, but they will endorse the results all the same out of respect for the pay scale system. The Senior Civil Service Council also believes there is room for improvement.
Because after checking all the companies, we find that basically it complied with the methodology. However, we find a few companies, they have some data not tallying with the wordings, and we have already asked the research team to make improvements so that clarity and accuracy can be achieved next year. We endorse the report.
4 unions that attended today's meetings have endorsed the findings, but some have pulled out of the Pay Trend Survey Committee. These include the Police Force Council, the Disciplined Services Consultative Council, and some members of the Senior Civil Service Council.
I think they didn't turn up in the last several meetings, and that's why I make an appeal to all the people, all the parties didn't turn up, hoping that they can return to the Pay Trend Survey Committee to continue the work for the 2015 so that all the survey fields, all the methodologies can be proven.
The Pay Trend Survey reflects pay adjustments in 110 private companies in the past financial year. The pay hikes ranged from 5.32% to 6.91%. After deducting the payroll cost of civil service increments, the net indicator shows a 3.8% increase for the lower ranks, a 4.71% rise for the middle ranks, and a 5.96% climb for senior staff. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
A former mining tycoon has been sentenced to death on the mainland. Liu Han was found guilty of leading a criminal gang that killed rivals. Liu was one of China's richest men. He was chairman of energy conglomerate Sichuan Hanlong Group, which owns stakes in Australian and US mines. Liu and his brother Liu Wei were both sentenced to death in a court in Hubei province today. The Liu brothers and 34 other defendants were accused of crimes such as organizing, leading and participating in a criminal gang, as well as intentional homicide. They were the largest criminal group of its kind to go on trial in China in recent years.
And when we come back, the United Nations slaps sanctions on Boko Haram. War of words on the Korean Peninsula over shelling, and Montreal comes to life in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Where is everyone?
Hello? Hello? When there's no one around, the bad boys get badder.
Changing gear with my left hand. How multitasking was that? Oh, I'm ruining my Ferrari.
Monday, Top Gear at 9:35 on Pearl.
The selection of the chief executive by universal suffrage in 2017 will be a milestone in Hong Kong's constitutional development. The Basic Law sets out the aim of achieving universal suffrage and the relevant principles. On this basis, we can elect our chief executive by one person, one vote. So what does the Basic Law say? Let's take a look.
According to Article 45 of the Basic Law, the selection of the chief executive consists of 3 steps. First, nomination. A broadly representative nominating committee will be formed to nominate candidates in accordance with democratic procedures. Second, one person, one vote election. All eligible Hong Kong voters will elect the chief executive through one person, one vote. Third, appointment. Appointment by the Central People's Government as the chief executive.
Following these steps, we can all elect our chief executive in 2017.
I'm not doing any more chemo.
I'm not gonna let you just die.
I don't owe you anything.
I'm done with Wilson.
You can't just abandon him.
House loses it.
He just doesn't want to live in pain.
Life is pain! I wake up every morning, I'm in pain. You know how many times I wanted to just give up?
Monday, House at 10:50 on Pearl.
And a warm welcome back to TVB News. In the wake of Boko Haram's deadly attacks and the kidnapping of schoolgirls in Nigeria, the UN Security Council is stepping up efforts to stop their reign of terror. While the UN levels sanctions against the terrorist group, protesters in Nigeria are demanding more from their president. Sonia Artero reports.
Boko Haram is creating chaos in Nigeria. By freezing their assets and making it hard to secure arms, the United Nations shows it will not stand for it.
The appalling kidnapping in Chibok and the relentless terrorist attacks that follow this event are really a wake-up call for all of us and UN system.
The UN insists that Boko Haram, whose name means broadly Western education is sinful, has killed thousands of Muslims and Christians. To prevent them from wreaking more havoc, the UN will help secure Nigerian schools.
We can help strengthen the criminal justice response in Nigeria to terrorism and crime through sharing experience, best practices, training, providing toolkits and so on.
But Nigerians protesting at the presidential villa in Abuja are demanding more. They want their president to recover the kidnapped girls safely and stop the menace of Boko Haram.
This is wrong. It is terribly wrong. Our president can do better than this.
We also have questions about the military budget. Why is it that we are paying so much for security and we are getting so little security at the end of the day?
This girl told U.S. lawmakers to prepare for the worst after witnessing Boko Haram kill her father and brother.
That's how they shoot my dad in his chest 3 times, and then my brother fell
and he was moving the shot in his mouth. Then he died.
In addition to sanctions, the U.S. State Department vows to stop the al-Qaeda-linked group in its tracks.
We're working with vetted police and civilian security components to build Nigerian law enforcement capacities to investigate terrorist cases, effectively deal with explosive devices, and secure Nigeria's border.
Sonia Artero, TVB News.
South Korea has denounced North Korea's denial of firing artillery near their disputed maritime border yesterday. South Korean President Park Geun-hye today convened a security meeting to discuss the military's ability to deal with the North's additional provocations. South Korean officials insist the exchange started after North Korean artillery shells fell in waters near one of their Navy ships. Pyongyang said after one of the South's warships intruded into North Korean waters, the South initiated firing on its own. Because the disputed border is not clearly marked, it's prompted 3 skirmishes between the rival Koreas since 1999.
In Ukraine, 16 soldiers were killed when pro-Russian insurgents attacked a military checkpoint near Donetsk yesterday. It was the deadliest raid yet on Ukrainian troops in the rebellious eastern region. Witnesses say more than 30 troops were wounded, some of them seriously. The attack comes just days ahead of Sunday's presidential election. Kiev has acknowledged it will be impossible to hold the vote in some areas, including Donetsk and Luhansk, where separatists have declared independence. Acting Ukrainian President Alexander Turchinov accused Russia of escalating the conflict and trying to disrupt the election. Gunmen attacked an Indian consulate in western Afghanistan today. Its diplomatic staff escaped unharmed. A group of assailants armed with machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades opened fire from a nearby building in the city of Herat. 3 gunmen were killed in a gun battle with Afghan authorities. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack. Earlier, a group called Ansar al-Tawhid posted a video online that threatened India. And security experts say anti-India elements from Pakistan might be behind the attack.
In Brazil, there were more anti-World Cup demonstrations, but support for the protesters appeared to be waning. In Rio de Janeiro, hundreds of teachers took to the streets, saying the money going towards hosting the World Cup would be better spent boosting salaries and improving Brazil's education system. And in Sao Paulo, an estimated 15,000 protested against urban developments for the upcoming tournament that they say have left many people homeless. But a new poll released yesterday said 52% of those surveyed support the protests. That's a sharp drop from the 89% in favor of the demonstrations in a poll taken last June.
To Mexico City now, where the battle over one water spring has triggered violent clashes between village residents and police. More than 100 people were injured and a handful arrested when people in the centuries-old village of San Bartolo Amalyaco tried stopping the government from tapping into their water supply. City officials insist the spring will provide water to 20,000 people who don't have any. But residents suspect it will be used to supply upscale developments nearby. This is the latest of a series of clashes over scarce water in the city that draws much of its supply from surrounding states.
And back locally, lawmakers today continue to scrutinize the Financial Secretary's budget blueprint. They're set to begin voting on the amendments later tonight. Rani Samtani reports.
After LegCo President Zhang Yuxing announced steps to cut short the budget filibuster earlier this week, legislators today continue to discuss amendments to the appropriation bill. Some criticize Education Chief Eddie Ng for calling on teachers not to encourage students to take part in Occupy Central.
I do think that our Secretary for Education doesn't really know what he's doing. So I do think that Secretary for Education should resign.
I really hope that the Secretary can become down to earth and do something concrete for our education system and for our children and solve the problems in our education system.
People Power's Raymond Chan called out the Home Affairs Bureau, accusing it of overspending on the underused Youth Square in Chai Wan.
The Youth Square is a failure. Why is there the Youth Square? Why did they spend $800 million on a building whose future was not sure and the usage rate was not sure?
After legislators finish debating nearly 1,200 amendments, they will vote on each of them one by one. Labour Party legislator Sid Ho made clear her party will not support the budget.
But anyway, I believe that the third reading and putting the appropriation bill to vote could be conducted on June 4th.
Pro-establishment lawmaker Wong Kwok-hing also said he expects all the procedures to be completed by June 4th, as long as progress is made today. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
Ocean Park's new water park will be bigger than originally planned. The Town Planning Board has relaxed the height restrictions so that the venue will be 3 stories instead of just 1 or 2 levels high. The new water park will include 19 slides, 2 beaches and wave pools. It's expected to be completed in 2017 at the earliest. All right, Tony, over to you for sports.
Yep, and the build-up to the World Cup is what we're going to talk about first. Uruguay are keeping their fingers crossed that Luis Suarez will recover from surgery in time for the World Cup. Also in World Cup news, Team USA fans are digesting the decision to leave veteran goalscorer Landon Donovan out of the squad to Brazil. Prayers have been said across Uruguay in the hope that star striker Luis Suarez recovers from knee surgery in time for the World Cup. Suarez has had an excellent season, becoming the English Premiership's top scorer as he helped Liverpool to second place in the league. But he suffered an injury on the last day of the season, casting doubt on whether he'll make it to Brazil. The Newcastle defender who made the tackle has reportedly received death threats from several Uruguay fans. Team USA coach Jurgen Klinsmann has controversially left